Now we begin the In Conversation with Beena Paul, Vice Chairperson and Artistic Director of IDSFFK, and Leena Yadav, Fiction Jury Chairperson. I welcome you both onto the stage to begin the session.
So, thanks, Leena, for being here. So fantastic. I think I've been trying to get you for very long, and it's really nice to have you here finally. I'm quite pleased that it didn't have to be online. I mean, though you all have seen the film, but seen the films online, but it's really nice to be here together. I would just like to start before we go into more particulars about how you got into filmmaking, because cliched as it may sound, for many generations it wasn't very easy for it to be a choice for a girl or a woman growing up in kind of urban situations to make this choice. So if you could talk a little about that.
Unfortunately, I don't have a story that I was 4 years old and I knew with complete clarity that I wanted to make films. But looking back, I think my life was army daughter. So every 2 years we were in a new place. And I think the only way I made friends was by telling stories, bizarre stories. So if I trace it back, probably that's the root of it. But I did economics, honors. I was supposed to do my MBA, and that's when I suddenly said, I can't do this. I need to do something else. So I just knew something vaguely in media I wanted to do. So took a course in Bombay, a 1-year diploma at Sophia's. Post that, got out into the world, and it was a very difficult world because I think a lot of filmmakers face that. It's a very family-run thing. Outsiders are not really welcome. But very soon in the game, I realized that if I want to direct, how am I equipped? And that's when I decided that I needed to learn one skill completely, so I have some point of control for directing. And to my complete amateur eyes, I thought that was editing. And now I'm most grateful for that because I learned directing from editing. I keep evolving even as a writer because of editing. So learned editing, and then randomly got an offer to direct a show for Star Movies, which at that time was this foreign channel, and which was more a kind of, it was a nostalgia on films. So it was called This Week that year. But again, big education for me that in that I got to interview a lot of technicians. So looking at films down the years, and like I interviewed the cameraman of Mughal-e-Azam. I mean, people that we wouldn't get to meet otherwise. And that also gave me a very interesting perspective on what life is going to be like, which is it's not going to be easy. So, yeah, in short, that's my journey into making films.
Yeah, but then you take this big plunge and make these two big films, Teen Patti and Shabd.
Yeah.
I mean, just to ask you, what prompted you to go that way first,
So I had written Shabd, and honestly, I was actually trying to, at that time, some TV channels were doing telefilms. I always thought of Shabd as a very indie kind of film. In fact, the cast that I had in mind first was Irfan Khan. So again, I got a meeting fixed with Pritish Nandi Communications. I went and narrated the script to Rongita Nandi. She got super excited and said, you meet Baba right now. So she made me narrate the script all over again to her father, Pritish Nandi. And at the end of the narration, he picked up the phone and started calling Ajay Devgan. And I was like, but do you think any of these people are going to do a film like this? And he said, it's high time. I got very inspired by that. And I said, okay, so different kind of narratives have to come out in mainstream. So I took that as a challenge. And they did sign on because these actors hadn't heard a script like this before. Some of them also did not sign on, saying that, oh, it's too risky because I can't understand who's the audience for this. But I got a big cast. And I kind of had to dumb down the script a little bit. Thinking that, oh, I have to reach this. But that was a big lesson because then it neither reached there and neither did it remain to what it needed to be. Also, then a lot of lessons in my first film. The way it got marketed as a love story. It's a complicated script with Sanjay Dutt and Aishwarya Rai. You know, people are walking into a theatre wanting a love story, and they get something else. Never lie to the audience. Big lesson. You know, and literally almost all those mistakes got repeated in Teen Patti with me. Again, complicated kind of subject about greed, got marketed as almost like a heist film. So people thought it's going to be this fun gambling kind of thing. And when you lie to the audience, I think they get angry also. Like, you know, what did you promise me and what are you giving me? You want me to now deal with this heavy thing. So, actually, after Teen Patti, I said, I don't want to make films. It's too difficult. This journey, and I don't feel gratified. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. These two were great experiences for me in many, many ways. But that's when I said I won't make films anymore. And Aseem Bajaj, my husband, who's a cinematographer, said, no, you're the best director that I've worked with. So you have to make a film, and I promise you, you will get a say in everything, from the promotions to everything in this film. Very difficult promise he made, and it was a very, very, very difficult journey making that film. But wow, what a journey. Yeah.
So now let's talk about Parched.
Yes.
Which is where I think we sort of mark you. Now, one is of course about the script, which I would like you to talk a little about, because not only was it an unusual, you know, women talking about sexuality is still till today not the done thing. Secondly, also your definition of yourself as a woman filmmaker, as a woman, how did that happen through that film? Because I do know that I think earlier you were very particular about this whole notion of a woman filmmaker and what it means, etc. So if you could talk about that a bit, first about Parched, about you know, of course, Tanishta's and Aseem's involvement and how this script came about. Is it based on stuff you knew, or why did you put it in a rural setup when you were completely an urban girl? So things like that, if you could just talk a little about Parched and how it was received around the world, really.
So, my first two films, firstly, made me understand this whole idea of promotion, which is such a mad, and you have to just be somebody else. So the only thing I got asked was, being a woman, how do you feel? Being a woman, how do you feel? And my thing was, I don't know any other way. So, like, I am a woman, and why is this being fed almost like a thing? It almost felt like I was being put in a box. And what I walked away from that was that, oh, I'm never going to make a film about women because that's what they expect me to do. Woman filmmaker, go make a film about women. And I think I was resisting my most basic urge, because I need to tell stories about me and women like me, and, you know. So when Aseem gave me wings and said, do whatever you want, there will be no pressure of casting or anything. That's when I met Tanishta, and she's like, let's do something together. Aseem is a cinematographer, I'm a writer, director, editor, she's an actor. We said, let's do something really small, but something really meaningful. And we were looking for subjects, and she ended up telling me about some conversations that she had with women in a village when she was shooting a film called Jal. And I said that, oh my God, the conversations about sex and sexuality are so much more honest. So then what's progress? Because we are progressive, but we don't talk like this, you know, where it's addressed so honestly without any, you know. So I took on a thing, and we went on this big trip to Kutch. And we visited many villages, spent days with women. And the moment you're alone with women, I mean, I think everything dissolves. Rural, urban, everything dissolves. So we got into really honest spaces with them. And we also came from a place of sharing, so that it's not like we are not sitting on a high horse. Learned so many amazing things. So I think all my characters have come out of those conversations and those real people and their real stories. But I came back to Bombay, and I started writing the script. And I actually had this big aha moment where I said, I'm not writing about them, I'm writing about us. And for me, that became a key mantra for the day I feel that about anything, I know I'm on the right path. Because I feel like you can't make a film with judgment. You have to drop the judgment. And I take actors also through workshops where I ask them what they feel about the characters they're playing. And it's so amazing that they play it from so much judgment. So the moment it became about me, my neighborhood, it's the same story, you know. And then I just wrote Parched, I think lightning. I've never written a script so fast. Then I sent it to my filmmaker friends across the world because I don't know, I felt like because it's so rooted, it's so universal. And for the first time, I didn't get script notes. I got reactions like, oh, I know a Bijli right here in New York. I know somebody like this in Istanbul, you know, and that layered up my story even more. So I kept it rooted, but I kept adding these layers that kept coming in. And I think that never stopped. Even during the making, we were all going through a transformative, telling our honest thing, you know. Even like spot boys would come and tell me कि ये मेरे बहन के साथ ऐसा हुआ है. And I would like even at the last minute write an extra line or change something. I mean, that's the power I think you get when you write your own scripts, that you can take these decisions. And I love magic that happens. I don't want to stick to script. Sometimes I'm inspired by a performance and I change things around. So yeah, in short, and even just practically making Parched, forget about the money, that's a completely different story. But like I went and recce'd 33 to 35 villages in Kutch. And every time it came down to, oh, so women like you will come here to shoot. So we won't allow. And this was not the older generation, it was the younger generation who are so-called educated. So then I questioned, what is education doing then? You know, so that also I got into the script. And it broke so many of my notions, you know, starting from we are progressive. So that completely got smashed. And this continued across the world, you know, especially in America. The conversation in every Q&A, I went to like many, many festivals in America, where the first Q&A question would always be, oh, with so many rapes happening in India, this is such a topical film. And I would completely like turn the mirror on them and say, but domestic violence is the highest in America. And what about child pregnancies here? Teenage pregnancies. So, and the moment it comes to them, then suddenly like a dam would break, and then women would, like 40 women have caught me outside after the Q&A sharing such dark things about themselves. So then I realized, oh, so this progress is just like the upper layer being cleaned up and things being shoved under the carpet, but nothing's changed. And that's heartbreaking. Like even in Sweden, I remember a woman telling me that this is the most gender equal country in the world, but exactly this is happening right here. So that was like,
Gosh,
really.
that's really dark.
Yeah.
Because your Bijli character is something else.
Yeah.
How did you meet somebody like her? And also the actress, I mean, she was just superb. If you could just...
She's the only fictional character actually who I did not meet. I brought her in to shake it up. And so in a way, thinking in the past now, I feel Bijli is my voice as a director and maker who wants to infuse questioning into these women, you know. So Bijli totally came from that space, and I think all the actresses broke so many barriers to do those roles, and hats off to them. I think there was a magic. I mean, sometimes it happens that just everybody comes in wanting to make the film the best it can be and really giving yourself to it.
So, just in terms of yourself as a professional, what did it do to you in terms of self-reflection, future career choices you made, the kind of things you write now? Because it does seem like a watershed moment in your career.
Absolutely.
So if you could...
Absolutely. I mean, I think Parched firstly gave me great therapy. It was therapy because I was very, very traumatized. um, by my past experiences. Yeah. By even defining this industry that I was in. It was therapy, it empowered me. Just being able to go to more than 20 countries and have these conversations, it told me there are people who want to watch these films, you know, so I can. And you have to just find the right way, and it opened crazy amount of doors for me. Uh, Much more outside this country, which is the trauma I bring back, that we are not a community as filmmakers. We don't have honest conversations with each other. I see if somebody does something different and brilliant, they're being pulled down. You know, so that's something I hope we are able to change, where you can go to each other's films and tell them that it's not, it's not got the punch.
And it's not to belittle somebody, but to make
Yes.
them better for the next film. really.
Absolutely. Because I also, once I got the opportunity to collaborate with technicians outside of this country, I realized we function so much from ego. We become the film. So if you say something bad about my film, you're saying it to me. You know? So that separation is very, very essential if we want to grow. If we want to live in the well and be happy, then that's the way it's going to be. But it also taught me some very interesting things now. And like you said, that I'm an urban person, but I made this. I think if you're empathetic, I believe that we must tell others stories. Because that's when you truly immerse yourself in that life, in that culture, in that. So if you have the ability, I feel that an outside perspective sometimes tells even the community about themselves. And I found that working with the American DP on Parched, the way I saw so many different things because of his lens. Or working with an American editor who's never done a foreign film ever in his life, who the discussions were so interesting because I realized that it's the same material, but a slight shift in the grammar of telling it suddenly, you know, enlarges your audience. So he would ask me, he would say that, oh, this scene, and I was so, like, he's going to cut my scene out. I was like, no, Kevin, this is a very important scene. He said, why? I would tell him X, Y, Z. And he's like, oh, that's interesting, but that's not coming across to me. So we have to make sure that comes across. So I feel we should work in an international crew and tell human stories anywhere in the world. And that's the way I want to go. I want to make stories in different parts, in different languages. Things that interest me, where I can immerse myself and be honest to what I'm doing.
Have you worked on short films? Have you done any have you worked in the short format?
Yes, I just did.
I mean, no,
Yeah,
that's of course
yeah.
for
The
for
anthology.
the anthology.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that experience. How was that? I mean, I
So-
know. I don't know if the audience knows it's the crime. What's it called? Sorry.
No, tell it like a woman now. Now
Oh,
that's what
tell it like a woman. Oh,
Yes,
yeah. I haven't
yes,
seen that, Leena.
yes.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. Okay.
So no, it's not out.
Out,
So
yeah.
basically, I had met this producer after Parched at one of the festivals, Italian woman, who said that I wish I'd met you earlier because I'm doing this anthology with 6 female directors across the world. And last year in 2020, October, I suddenly get a call and she said, I've had 2 dropouts. Would you be able to shoot a shot in this period in India? And I said, yes. So I sent her a couple of scripts. She loved one of them. Then they said they need a big actress from this country. That was part of the thing. So finally I got Jacqueline Fernandez to do. So it's a very, very beautiful story about, it's called Sharing a Ride. It's about this woman who's obsessed with beauty and perfection, which is Jacqueline, who ends up sharing an auto rickshaw with a transgender one day. And how she's so uncomfortable with that she kind of just jumps out of the auto and says, like, I can't do this. And basically, interestingly, it's a film where the transgender heals the cisgender, which is why I think it's like different. It's but just the format was so amazing to work with. I had never done short before, and I just felt like I could do so many things that I could not do in a feature narrative.
I mean, if you could just elaborate on that.
So because you have a short time, and if you want to do anything with an arc or a graph, so I went very abstract in the telling. There are so many liberties you can take. So the challenge here is, how do you tell that bigger story in this much time? Because it still is that big. I mean, whichever story you pick up. So it pushes you to innovate with your form and structure and, how to be able to achieve that. At the end of it, it has to emotionally do something to you. So it was an amazing experience. We're waiting for it to release. They want to release it at some big festival. So, yeah.
And your work with Netflix on
House of Secrets.
House of Secrets, which is really interesting. I mean, I think the kind of twist you gave to the whole story and the kind of oppressiveness of the family as a unit is really interesting. Was that part of your brief, or did you think that up, or I don't know if everybody's seen this. This is on the Burari. Yeah, you've seen it. Yeah, yeah. So on the Burari murders that happened in Delhi, so she's made one episode on that. Which
3
is
episodes.
It's 3 episodes.
Series.
It's a series.
Yeah.
3 episodes,
Yeah.
which is available on Netflix. It's called The House of Secrets. Very interesting. So if you could talk about that, and also again scripting where it's going to be on a format like a home and people are going to watch. Was that a different experience, like you talked about writing for a small short film? If you could talk a bit about this. Also, I really loved this whole notion of this family, and it just is so intriguing about what a family can do to each other. And
So this actually happened in a very funny way, but we just sold Rajma Chawal to Netflix, and I got a call from them saying our international docu team is coming. I think they were filling slots because I hadn't done docu before. But when this case had happened, I was so disturbed by it, and then suddenly the media went into some other narrative with it. And I didn't get a single answer. And I had just thought to myself, I wish I get to do an investigative documentary on this, or one day I will. So then this was in the beginning of 2019 that I get a call, do you want to meet the team? India didn't have a unscripted team yet that time. So I went and met these people. I told them about the Burari, and they were in from like the word go. After that, actually, I was doing something else in LA, and they kept calling me and saying, give us the script and give us the, not script, but give us a presentation. We want to greenlight it. So that's how it began. I was scared because I had not done docu, but then I said, it's about telling a story. It's just that you have different tools now. The other thing which I had to do very consciously and I wanted to do was again dropping my narrative in it. I had to drop everywhere that I thought I wanted to reach with it. And I said, at least for the first 2 schedules and interviews, I will have I have questions only. I don't have and that story actually compels you to have a narrative. It compels you to, ye hua, and then this happened, and then I think this happened. So I had to keep dropping that at every point. And after that, I mean, I think it started emerging. But what I felt was, after the first 2 lots of interviews, was there were so many things in my head, but there was nobody verbalizing it. That's when I realized I have to go to psychiatrists and, psychotherapists and get that angle. And the first interview I did with Rachna Johri, and she hit everything. Like, yes, this is how I'm going to tell what I want to say. At least point an attention towards an aspect of this story which needed to be. And then it's been 2 years of obsessively following every thought that we had as a team. Again, an amazing, amazing team. We had like the craziest team, and we worked through COVID, which was not the best thing because working on such a dark subject, Namrata would call me and say, I have these dead bodies and I'm alone at home. Every day I'm staring into the computer. But I think we were also, so we were also therapists for each other. At some point, humor had to come in because it was too dark. And that's why at some levels I appreciate the memes that are out, though I've got questioned about it, that I'm not responsible for it, but I get it, because when you're so disturbed, sometimes you need to resort to humor. So I get that thing, because we went through extreme fear, humor, all kinds of things.
It is a very fearful feeling when you watch that
Yeah.
film. you
And
know.
the thing is, it was started playing out in our lives in very crazy kind of ways. The first schedule we started on their first death anniversary. We shot for 11 days. We realized we are 11 people. We were living in a hotel called Lalit. We were, and and then we all started having nightmares. It's the moment you start believing in something like that, and one of my assistants through the whole thing kept counting people and days, and it was 11, because suddenly our attention was on 11, so it started showing up everywhere. But that's how fragile it is in building a belief, and that's what the family is. So that is the story. Yeah.
They all sort of psych themselves
Yeah,
into
yeah.
believing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to go back to what's happening in the sort of whole. I'll just open it to questions. Just 1 second. This is my last question. The Me Too happened in Bombay, etc. What is I mean, after having been through this whole going through commercial films, after Parched, you did Rajma Chawal, etc. Do you think there is now a kind of resolution that is happening? How do you think this resolution of this, very strong kind of polarization in the industry between not only genders, between powerful and not so powerful? Is there some way that it is getting more professional? Is it moving towards a more kind of equitable space after all these upheavals have taken place? No.
But I'm optimistic, and I'm grateful that I'm still around, getting to do what I want to do. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle even now for everything that you want to do. I was very hopeful that this lockdown has changed all of us. I said people have sampled things they've never sampled before. Content has changed, and then the first release proved me wrong. But I'm hoping that I still have hope, actually. I felt like, okay, maybe people just needed to go to the theaters and just, yeah. So I don't know. In fact, some signs that I have is I think we've regressed more. I don't want to give it weight, because I don't want to believe it and I don't want to see it. The fact that House of Secrets gets watched, which is a format that nobody understands. When I was interviewing people, they thought they had to enact. They didn't know what is documentary. One of the people I interviewed, one of the family friends, she called me from Tohana saying that in a small little village, she got accosted by 30 people because she was and they've seen the documentary, and then the cops came thinking there's some problem. And then there was a huge discussion where one guy said it's a film. He said, no, it's a documentary. The fact that if this discussion can happen in a small little village, I want to hope for change, because we have to, for me, narrative is also changed now post-COVID. I feel like we need to come to basics and simpler. Simpler is very difficult.
Does anybody have a question? We can... Yeah.
Which I just want to mention one last thing, which is why thank you for having me on this jury. I've got so uplifted watching the films that I've watched.
I know, it is very nice.
It's been such a difficult decision also to do, because they're using that format brilliantly.
Hello, Leena Yadav. You are not only a director but also editor too.
Yes.
So my question is regarding the montage designer. The montage man is more predominant than director. What is your stance on it? My second question is regarding the Paul Cox, the Australian director, when he came to Trivandrum, said that cinema is a dying art. Now the corporates like Reliance is into the production of films. What is your standpoint on that? These are another question is regarding confessional cinema, like the traumatic experience shared by Me Too movement, like the Vairamuthu, the songwriter and the singer Chinmay in Tamil Nadu. And they sharing a film, the traumatic experience. Chinmay is sharing her traumatic experience via a confessional film. What is your take on these three?
I haven't seen. Yeah. Yes.
Second, editor is predominant, more
No,
predominant.
cinema is a dying art.
Dying art.
Yeah.
And
I-
Sylvia Plath said dying is an art. How you connect? Cinema is a dying art, and Sylvia Plath says dying is an art.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Wow. So, I am, yeah, my roots of directing come from editing. So, I do believe, and I have seen it so many times, editing like an editor is, I think, one of the most crucial members. But it wouldn't reach there without the director. So, I guess we should give them also some importance.
I
Yeah.
certainly believe it's for the director that you work.
Absolutely.
The editor is there to sort of help realize
Yes.
the director.
Yeah. And get another perspective, because I think when you come out of a shoot, it's very difficult to switch into an edit mode. And I think the point of view that an editor brings in at that point is very, very essential. That's why, despite being an editor, I do not edit my own films ever. I do a lineup, and I did that mistake only in my first film, after which I never edited any of my own films. I use editing to shoot my films. And a lot of times DPs ask me, why aren't you doing more coverage and you'll trouble me later? And I say, no. That's so powerful for me to be able to say, no, I have everything I want.
What is your OTT experience? Because Steven Spielberg says the OTT fails cinema because it is a small microphone.
It's complicated. It is true up to a point. Because though they keep saying that they are, they are nurturing, filmmakers, but at one level you end up catering also.
Okay.
But I don't know what's the way out, because this is feeling like the most powerful tool. I mean, when
Well, it is just like Turkey killed cinema, but silent film is excelling. It to be excelled.
yeah.
But Turkey killed cinema. There is a stance like that. So OTT kills cinema.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg says it fails cinema.
See, every time there is change, you lose something and you gain something. I mean, when I released my film Rajma Chawal on OTT, on the day of the release, I felt like there is no physical sense of that release. I felt so depressed that day. But the reality also is my friends across the world saw it within the first 48 hours, which has never happened. So it is a struggle. I mean, at one point you move forward and another point you're being held back. It's a struggle, and every new technology or thing will always challenge you till you are able to find some sense in, doing the servicing, but at the same time being able to tell what you want to say. So far I've been able to crack that balance, but it is tough.
What about the confessional cinema of trauma experienced?
Pass the mic around, I'll pass it back. So sorry, because there are other people.
Hi, Leena ma'am.
Hi.
Yeah, I have watched Past a couple of years back and had that kind of a liberation feeling that was felt by the protagonist. It is awesome, and thanks for that.
Thank you.
So my question is like, how far do you believe you belong to Bollywood?
I don't like the word Bollywood. It just feels like another box. But somebody explained to me that Bollywood is a genre. It's not an industry. It's a genre. I don't care what you call me as long as I get to do what I want to do.
I mean,
These are all boxes that I've been jumping out of every time I get an opportunity.
yeah. I
but-
mean, you have had your first debut movie with Aishwarya Rai and Sanjay Dutt and the likes of that.
Yeah.
So on those things, but again, we have seen you deviating to other narratives and much more realistic and activist kind of movies. So in that way, my question is related to that, like how far...
If Bollywood is a community, then I'm on the periphery of it. I just dip my toes when I need to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm Nitin, big fan.
Hi,
So,
thank
these are two. I have two questions. Like, first thing is, how was it working with Asim ji? Like, as a cinematographer, he was a producer also. Yeah, it's his spouse. So, how was it work? How does it work?
So Asim produced Parched. That's when he said, if I'm producing, I cannot shoot, but I will get you a master for him. He said, so that even he gets a class from them. So on Parched and Rajma Chawal, he only produced. He did not shoot the films. So actually I worked with him after a while doing House of Secrets. And again, challenging because he's again a narrative cameraman. Initially, till it bit him, he used to just like, you know, put the frame and I have to just stand around and do nothing and listen to these people talk for 4 hours. So, but I think he also got cued into it, and then he bought into the story and he bought into the conversations that we were having. House of Secrets didn't need hardcore production once you fix the interviews. It's more logistics. So it was great working with him on that.
Okay. The second thing is, I'm not using the word, but the box that you were referring to.
Yes.
Do we, isn't it high time to, that we need a support system there, not only to, get rid of this ego, but, as a support system to addressing the Me Too's or, other issues that's happening. Do you think that?
We need, I don't know how to go about it. We definitely need. I mean, one day somebody was Me Too, tomorrow he's making a film and everybody's okay with it. It's bizarre to me. I can't make sense of it. At one point I stopped going for previews because I cannot lie. And nobody here wants to hear the truth. So you have to make your own world and make sense of it, or surround yourself by like-minded people, because I wish we were a community, man. I really, really wish because I think we have the most amazing stories in this country.
Thank you.
And talent, and amazing talent. Actually, in every department, we can world best we have. But we're not a community we just want, the way I see it, like, we celebrate mediocrity. So that anything that stands out from it is just like either ignored or, I don't want to talk depressing things. I'm full of hope and I'm very happy, but it's challenging. I mean, I just wish, that's it.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Namaskaram. A big fan of yours from Chandigarh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is about the process of House of Secret. Just why House of Secrets? Why you want to make documentary on that incident? Because I haven't slept like for 3 days after watching the documentary. I live in hostel alone, and I watched it in the night, midnight. So, second, what about the process? Can you please elaborate with the team? Because not only the craft like camera, script, writing, production team, it's a whole process. It impacts you psychologically as a human being. So you read those diary notes. So have you read all the diaries, all the notes? So can you please explain?
So, when I said that when the incident happened and I was very intrigued by it, it never even occurred to me that I should make a narrative film on it. And now I can tell you for sure the narrative film on that subject cannot be as effective as the documentary, because the documentary reminds you of the reality of it. If I made this as a fiction, you would say like, oh, like, hello, what is this? Yeah. 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 And the unknown bits here are very powerful actually. The unknown bits in this narrative is where the power is, the not knowingness and the living with the not knowingness of it. And we will never know, come what may. That actually, I think, psychologically affects you even more. Process, like I was saying, I just started having these conversations, and also initially went through a lot of guilt that I'm going to people and saying, I know you have a wound, but can I scratch it? Can I tear it a little more? And can I take you to that place again and ask you very, very uncomfortable questions? I mean, I didn't realize what I was getting into. When I was doing the first interview, I realized, oh my God, how do I go there? And how do I ask this? You know, I'm insensitive. But big lesson. One of the most emotionally impacting interviews for me was with the family who live in the village. In episode 1, the brothers. And after the interview, one of them came up to me and said, thank you, aaj bahut halka mehsoos ho raha hai. Because even they have not spoken about it amongst themselves. Again, going back to mental health. When something bad or uncomfortable happens, our thing is, stop talking about it, don't mention it. I mean, if you see even in Lalit's story, after his accident, his mother said, don't mention it. So for us, the solution is don't mention it. No, we have to talk about it. You know, because these things went on in their heads. They were glad actually to be asked those questions. But they didn't talk about it to each other because they felt that, oh, we are misrepresenting our own family then, you know. So, yeah, I surrendered to just listening to people. And I think the narrative came from them only, from all of them.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
You mentioned that for past you actually got yourself an American cinematographer. So my question is, what do you think an American cinematographer brought in to enhance the visuals than a more domestic one? In case you did mention that he brought in a different light to the entire narrative. So could you tell me what would happen if a more domestic, somebody who's seen these visuals before, directed or cinematographed it rather than an American, and vice versa?
See, the location was so beautiful, to be honest, that of course there are lots of Indian cinematographers who would have done a great job. But just the angles that he chose, because for him this was a very unique world. And the lens from which he watched it. Again, in their culture, they believe that this does not happen there, you know, so it's there. I liked the lens that he brought to, like the angles he would choose to you know, tell the story, and he used light so interestingly within that small little hut. And my first discussion with him, and I said, listen, it might feel like it's a depressing tale of these women, but I want to celebrate them, so it's going to be a beautiful film. It's not a dark, because sometimes by the written word you feel, you know, this has to be very grungy and, you know, edgy and all. I said, no, this has to be poetic, and let's celebrate them. With editing, I have lots of examples of, you know, things. I know I cut things off at places in my lineup, which Kevin brought back, and they really, like, more I see the film, I see it added something. So sometimes an outside empathetic eye is able to see you, you know, more interestingly. So it's more in the subject, not in the quality of the visual at all.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So we didn't have all the diaries because this case was still sub judice when we shot it. In fact, funnily enough, 2 weeks after the documentary release is when the case closed. So I don't know whether that we assisted in that. But I was after their lives to close the case. I was coordinating between the police department and the forensics. I used to call up the lab and say, please deliver this report. But it didn't close. So we had access to, I think about 70 or 100 pages from various sources. Journalists had some, and you know, so we kept collecting from everybody we could. But that was enough to tell us. And we had the last few pages, which at least in terms of the crime or whatever we want to call it, that was clear. So we had access to those pages. What else is there? It's, we could understand the whole psyche of what was being achieved by these instructions. So firstly, they were being used on a day-to-day basis like a patriarch to run the family. And it had very functional things like तुम बहुए बहुत झगड़ा करते हो kitchen में, माँ का ख्याल रखो, the kids are using the mobiles, so this kid will now be punished. But the kid will be punished, how? Mother has to sleep in the terrace. So that gave me a sense of there is some imbalance here in the genders, you know. But couldn't find, I pursued so many lines of thought but could not say things unless I reached somewhere with it. Otherwise we were doing exactly what we were criticizing the media for doing. So lots of functional things, but every time we've read those pages so many times, very disturbing. There is something like extremely disturbing. And that's why that is the only part that we chose to recreate. Otherwise, I didn't want to recreate anything in this case. We don't have any recreation scenes. But that I wanted the audience to experience what it feels like to hear somebody say it. If we had not put a voice over there, I felt like it didn't have the impact to understand what this family went through, because everybody, and including me, first question was, they're all educated people. How the hell were they listening to this? Why would they? I couldn't buy into that. But the more I read the diaries, I realized that this was a systematic process that happened, and they were also brainwashed. There was also a lot of fear, consequences. ये करोगे तो वो हो जाएगा, either भगवान से या some third force. Hello. Yeah. Yes. Yes. One of the most disturbing, huh? We had to see it because, I mean, we used to not only just see it, we were looking at the knots, ki some kai ke idhar bande hain, kai ke idhar bande hain. How badly was each person tied? Because we were looking at it like an investigation also. But very soon in the process, I think I dropped my who done it and it became why done it and what done it, you know, because this case was not, they're gone. Like now it is, why did this happen? And that is something that I really, also for me, visual is very, very important. Like I feel things should be cinematic. And I was thinking like shit, in a documentary, I don't have anything like that. But then I wanted to shoot those 11 ambulances traveling through the city. For me, that became like a symbolic shot of, because this is an autopsy of that city also. So I wanted the ambulances to travel through the veins of the city as a reminder of how could we all forget, and just nobody went back, man. Not a single journalist wrote a analysis piece on that case. Not a single journalist. How could we just turn a, you know, eye to something so big, which is actually about all of us because it's uncomfortable.
हेलो मैम, मेरा नाम विशाल है. हम तीनों साथ में ही हैं, हमने साथ में देखी है. वो अलग अलग क्वेश्चन है. मेरा भी हाउस ऑफ सीक्रेट से ही रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है, बहुत छोटा सा है. उसमें जो वॉइस ओवर आपने यूज़ किया है, उसमें आपका व्यू क्या था? वाई वो जिस तरह की वॉइस है, व्हाट वाज योर व्यू? और जब ये फिल्म रिलीज़ हो गई है, वाज इट अचीव्ड और नॉट?
I just said why I used the voice. That was the only recreation we did, because I wanted the audience to understand that every night this family sat and they were told like this. There was a hint in the diary, nobody can say for sure, that Lalit his body used to contort and his voice used to change. Now, whether it changed to the father's voice or whatever, we don't know. But it was like this phenomena that used to happen, and that's why probably they bought into it. So I wanted the audience also to kind of experience it. And I think it did. A lot of uncomfortable memes came out with it. I think it did hit the mark, because I think that's where the horror of what this family was going through struck people. At least that's what I understood from conversations that I've had with people. What do you think?
I also think it got achieved. मैम
Okay.
मेरा क्वेश्चन यही था कि वो इतना ज़्यादा हैवी हो जाता है कि आप रात जब सो भी रहे हो तो वो वॉइस ओवर ही आपके सपने में आ रहा है। तो मैं वही सोचता था कि वो इंटेंशनली था क्योंकि बहुत हैवी हुआ है।
I'll take that as a compliment.
थैंक यू।
Is
Thank
there a last question? Okay.
Hi, ma'am. I just wanted to ask you what nudged you to make a documentary rather than going for a dramatization like Talwar. So you talked about, the catharsis of the people who went through that trauma. So was it also about the audience reception? Because the documentary was much more blood-curdling than watching a dramatization. So what was,
What made me, I want to do all the formats I possibly can, because I want to always be uncomfortable and nervous about what I'm doing or discovering something new, because that's when I'll grow, maybe fall on my face sometimes, but that's how one will grow. And I don't believe that narrative can be made out of this case to have the same effect that this can have, because when you're hearing it from people who knew them versus I'm showing you this family, what would I show you? I don't know what happened. Everything is memories on the periphery through which we are trying to recreate what happened inside that house. I don't know how I couldn't have done it as a narrative.
Okay, we've run out of time. Run over time, actually.
Oh, God.
But anyway, thank you so much, Leena, and thanks for
Thank you,
being
Meena.
here. And it's been absolutely wonderful to chat to you, and sort of, though we've known each other, it's been really nice to decode you a bit. Let's say.
Thank
you
you.
so much, audience.
Thank you.
And